Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about The Prodigy? Stick around and find out. And I don't have like a song or anything at this point, a theme song to sing along, but in a very rare break from my uncut format, I'll have you listen to this instead. This is an audio bumper that I use at the beginning of my horror movie reviews, specifically on the Christian Geek Central podcast. Take a listen. Okay, kiddo, pop quiz time. Best movie franchise.
The Terminator.
Not even close. The Matrix. Best TV show.
Star Trek.
What? Farscape. You have to know that it's Farscape. It's like you're not even my son. Unless you're not my son.
I don't like your voice. It irritates me.
Hey, wait.
Let's make another hole.
No, please.
And another, and another, and another. You are very messy. Okay. Bye-bye.
Super appropriate this time around. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of The Prodigy. The synopsis on IMDb reads, in her much-anticipated foray into the horror thriller genre, Golden Globe and Emmy nominee Taylor Schilling stars, excuse me, I guess she did a little bit of staring now and then, stars in The Prodigy as Sarah, a mother whose young son Miles' disturbing behavior signals that an evil, possibly supernatural force has overtaken him. Fearing for her family's safety, Sarah must choose between her maternal instinct to love and protect Miles and a desperate need to investigate what or who is causing his dark turn. She is forced to look for answers in the past, taking the audience on a wild ride. That's debatable. One where the line between perception and reality becomes frighteningly blurry. I don't know. I think that's a pretty generous write-up there. Let's talk about the story, the script, the pace, and that kind of thing. This felt like a very standard horror movie to me with a very standard premise. You know, child starts behaving oddly or dangerously even maybe. Parents realize child is possessed or controlled. Conflict results from child being evil and dangerous but still being a child and is therefore loved too much to be killed by the adults who really need to be doing something about it. It's so standard a premise that for years, you know, I've used that intro bumper for horror movie reviews on the Christian Geek Central podcast, and that bumper's modeled after this template. It's so common. I felt ahead of this movie by at least 10 to 15 seconds almost the entire time, which was a bummer. You know, setups for jump scares felt obvious and really drawn out. I was like, can we get to the jump, please? Yes, I know, you know, I don't know how many times the kid was turned away, hunched down doing something, and the mom was coming up like, baby, you okay? Baby, turn around. Baby, what's going on? You know, and then there's the turnaround and reveal of something, you know. You know, it's lots of those kinds of things that you've seen in so many horror movies before, and they're using them again here, and it just felt extra drawn out, I guess, to me. I was also frequently waiting for protagonists to figure things out, and I'm not one of those people that, like, you know, relishes figuring out movies and stuff like that, or is particularly good at it usually. In fact, I've seen enough movies, both mainstream and like independent and off the beaten path types of smaller movies, that there's so many options to me. I can overthink things and really, you know, as a nice bonus, not be sure where a movie is going. But in this movie, for one reason or another, I just felt like I had things figured out before the characters did. I was like, guys, you need to get to this point to figure this out so we can move the story along, you know. So I had to endure waiting for characters to figure things out. I had to endure characters making nonsensical decisions that both put them in unnecessary danger and didn't fit their character, you know. Just some choices of the parents that I was like, there was a nice turn in the third act that I definitely want to recognize that forced the mother to take a drastic course of action down a dark path. But I'd rather that was like a surprise late in the third act. I kind of saw the movie going in that direction, and I didn't want to see it going in that direction. I wanted it to suddenly, like, she realized, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. And for it to be ahead of me so that I could be like, no way, she's not really going to do that. But I realized what she needed to do like 5 minutes before she got around to, realizing, okay, So I was waiting a lot for her to realize or do something. There was even an inserted bit of ADR that felt designed to make sure the audience knew what was going on. ADR, that's when the actors record their lines in a recording booth to replace the lines as they recorded them on the set, because oftentimes there's noise going on and stuff that they can't, eliminate from that. So this is a very common thing in lots of movies, but sometimes they'll also use ADR in post-production to add little things, like when you can't see an actor's, lips, they'll kind of like, you have a back over the shoulder camera from the back kind of view, and then you won't actually see their lips moving, but you'll hear their voice saying something. Maybe you'll see some jaw movement or something like that. And so they'll use ADR to have characters say things that maybe weren't in the original script, that maybe weren't part of what they were shooting that day at all, but they realized in editing, we need to make something more clear here, da-da-da-da. And so there was this moment that seemed like a clear example of that, where it's this over-the-shoulder from the rear shot of the mother. I don't even know if her jaw moved, and she was saying, such and such is what I have to do now. And I'm like, yes, I know. I've known you had to do that for the last 5 minutes. Am I really, do you really think that there's a lot of people that don't understand that? And I wish they wouldn't have kind of spoon-fed that so much. It would have been cool for her to not say that, so that if there was anyone that was still wondering what she was going to do, they would just be surprised when they see her actually carrying out these actions that, were admittedly an interesting path for the character to go down toward the end of the movie. I just wanted it to be more surprising. I wanted it to catch me off guard. The one significant, unique element to my mind was the fact that the kid was possessed by a reincarnated murderer rather than a demon of some kind. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a movie... no, that's not entirely true. No, that's definitely not true. But it's usually an alien or, a demon or something like that. I don't know that I can think of more than one other movie, which I wouldn't want to say because that would kind of spoil some part of that movie if you decided to go see it. Anyway, but that kind of like slightly unique element wasn't near enough to keep me interested conceptually or tonally in this movie. Speaking of tone, I would have really liked more bizarre and unsettling choices throughout the movie, and for the character of the murderer that was inhabiting the boy to be more odd and complex, Maybe the child actor wouldn't have been up for portraying that kind of character. I don't know. But that brings me to talking about the cast and the performances. Everyone in this movie was fine in my, meager estimation. But for a horror movie like this to get to me these days, it really helps to have complex performances layered with subtext, that way the characters feel more real to me, and then the danger feels more real to me as a result. The child actor in the title role was also fine, but I mean, there's so much entertainment these days, you guys. It's like this ridiculous amount of entertainment, and so with all these different entertainment options, I just don't have time or money for fine anymore these days. I want something that's strikingly unique to freshen up this kind of film for me. For example, instead of having the boy sneer and say, "I'm going to kill you," which, when he would have moments like that were basically that kind of line, a really direct, just kind of obvious, like, "You're gonna die" kind of line, It just felt like he was sneering as a villain, or he was just kind of going flat. And I can understand going flat. Sometimes with a child actor, they're not going to be able to portray a bunch of complex emotions. And so you have them go flat when they're possessed. And then that at least makes it kind of eerie, for them to just be kind of monotonous. "You're going to die," or whatever, that kind of thing. But I mean, if the child actor is up to it, what I would really like is for, instead of them being flat or sneering, in this kind of like very obvious "I'm a villain" kind of way, to have him doing something like smiling in like rapturous relief, with bloodshot eyes and tears streaming down his face as he says, I'm going to kill you, I think that would have been much more disturbing to me and would suggest a much more psychologically complex villain, and would give me those kind of what the crap moments that I really want in this kind of supernatural horror movie that's meant to be kind of creepy, But I realize that's asking a lot. Maybe the child actor couldn't do that. I don't know. I mean, after all, they can't all be Dakota Fanning, but maybe also would have been up to it, but the writer just didn't have ideas like that he brought to this script and was content to go with a more standard route for the story. Either way, these days, I just need much more complex characters and character performances to be interested in this kind of movie. I was hoping that maybe we'd get some interesting things, but I think honestly, the most creepy and weird things were in the trailer, which I always hate to realize that's the case seeing a movie. As far as the visuals, the effects are very conservative. The concept for this movie doesn't really call for that many visual effects at all, so no complaints there. As far as, themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this movie that might stimulate some worthwhile thought or some conversation? Well, a pivotal scene in this movie has two experts explaining to the mother that only here in the West do we dismiss reincarnation. They're trying to get her to accept this kind of what seems to be to her an outlandish idea that there's a reincarnated human being that's inside of her kid, and they're like, only here in the West do we dismiss reincarnation. They're kind of talking down the West. Much of the rest of the world accepts it as a reality. Okay, well, first, I think in the West we're actually increasingly accepting of all kinds of spiritual truth claims, often to our detriment. And second, it's no argument for truth to say that because a certain number of other people believe something that we should believe it too. Second, I think that... did I already say second? Maybe I did. Anyway, I think that that kind of reasoning of like, hey, the rest of the world or other people in the world are open to this. Us Westerners, we're just, we don't believe this kind of thing. I think if I were to guess that kind of writing, that kind of theming going on there, kind of stems from the popular sentiment that Western thinking equals closed-minded and bad, and Eastern thinking equals open-minded and good. But as Ravi Zacharias, famously to some, said to a professor of religious studies who was really promoting Eastern logic, as he called it, compared to Western logic, Ravi Zacharias, who was born and raised mostly in India, said to him, even in India, I look both ways before I cross the street. It's either the bus or me, not both. He was wanting like this all-inclusive, both and kind of a logic to prevail. So anyway, let's see. I lost my place in my notes now. Oh yeah, so yeah, there's I thought I saw symptoms of like the sentiment that Western thinking bad, Eastern thinking good, and I think that subtle, unstated often assumption needs to be put on the table and really evaluated graciously whenever it slips in. That said, this movie could possibly be a springboard for examining reincarnation and some of the anecdotal stories that are used to support it. As Christians, we only have indications in Scripture that would rule out the reality of reincarnation. But I don't think reincarnation is compatible with what we see Scripture teaching about the nature of life and death and life after our death. But I think if we find ourselves talking to someone who believes in the concept or who has a story to share that they feel supports it, we should have patience and the willingness to listen to those stories, especially those that are firsthand experiences of some kind that someone wants to share with us that they feel support their belief in reincarnation. People may be mistaken in concluding that certain phenomena are the result of reincarnation specifically, but as Christians, we can still recognize that they are experiencing something that is having an impact on them. And so we should be willing to hear them out and graciously ask questions that can help point toward the truth. All right, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, I didn't write any notes for this one. Skip it. of course, skip it. Unfortunately, even though you like the idea in theory of creepy kids in stories, it's so rare that it's pulled off well, and unfortunately this is not one where the sum of all of its parts is something unique and engaging for you, so just go ahead and skip this one. It's rated R for violence, disturbing and bloody images, a sexual reference, and brief graphic nudity. If you want specifics on the nudity, it's unflattering male frontal nudity from a distance, very brief, and sometimes obscured for the very brief number of seconds that it appears. Alright, well, right now, I'd like to take some time to write a tune for pre-made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate Libre, Stefan Kramek, and barbells and joysticks. Thank you for supporting me and SBP and CGC. And now, to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Want to hear your name in song. Check out our page on Patreon. All right, that's it. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell. Anything that you can do to help introduce others to this content, I'd be really grateful for. Then join us over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.